A millionaire abandons this premature baby in a hospital, but little did he know that years later on a TV news report, he would see an 18-year-old billionaire, and upon seeing his face, he is shocked to discover who he is. Comment what you think will happen and subscribe to my channel to support my work. The smell of mildew permeated the small apartment in a run-down neighborhood of Chicago, where the peeling paint on the walls revealed dark stains from water damage. August Mendonça shifted on the worn-out sofa, his tired eyes fixed on the old television that buzzed with static every time lightning flashed across the stormy night sky. His rough hands, calloused from years of hard labor, unconsciously clenched the remote control as the evening news report filled the room with its bluish glow. "The youngest billionaire in America has made history again," the reporter announced. Enthusiastically, Theo Rivers, at 18, has revolutionized the financial market with his innovative algorithm, democratizing access to investments for millions of Americans. The camera focused on the young entrepreneur's face. His delicate features and deep eyes caused a pang in August's chest. There was something familiar about that face, something that transported him 18 years into the past, to an equally stormy night when his life collapsed like a house of cards. The close-up on the screen showed a detail that made August drop: the remote control, a locket hanging around Theo's neck, identical to the one he had given his wife, Olivia. The initials TR engraved on the silver surface shone like a ghost from his past. August stood up abruptly, knocking over the can of cheap beer that was next to the sofa. The liquid spilled across the cracked linoleum floor, but he barely noticed. His legs trembled as he approached the television, touching the screen as if he could reach the locket through it. "It can't be," he murmured to himself, his hoarse voice breaking the silence of the apartment. It can't be. Memories he had, tried to drown in alcohol for almost 2 decades, flooded his mind. Olivia's pale face on the gurney in the public hospital, the torrential rain that prevented them from reaching the private clinic, the screams of pain echoing through the dimly lit corridors, the weak cry of the premature baby, so small and fragile that it fit in the palm of his hand. That night, when Olivia closed her eyes for the last time, something inside August died too. The phone call he received hours later informing him that Ricardo Valente had disappeared with all the money from the construction company was just the final blow. Devastated by the loss of his wife, financially ruined, and without the strength to fight, he did the unthinkable. He left the locket with his newborn son and disappeared into the night. In the years that followed, August plunged into a spiral of self-destruction. From the owner of a promising construction company, he became a broken man who survived on odd jobs as a construction worker, carrying the weight of guilt for abandoning a son he believed had not survived. Now, in front of the television, the truth hit him like a punch to the gut. His son had not only survived, but had become one of the most successful people in the country. The contrast between their lives could not be more cruel. While Theo was making headlines with his financial empire, August could barely pay the rent on the miserable apartment where he lived. With trembling hands, he picked up his old cell phone and searched for more information about Theo Rivers. Each new discovery was like a stab wound. The young prodigy had been raised by Sylvia Rivers, a single nurse. At 16, he developed a revolutionary micro-investment system. His startup, valued at billions, was changing the way ordinary people access the financial market. One photo in particular caught his attention: Theo and Sylvia at his high school graduation. The proud smile on the nurse's face made August feel a mixture of gratitude and corrosive envy. She had given the boy everything that he, the biological father, had been unable to provide. A particularly loud clap of thunder made the apartment lights flicker. August stumbled to the bathroom and stared at his reflection in the cracked mirror. The man staring back at him bore little resemblance to the promising businessman of 18 years ago. His face was marked by deep wrinkles, his poorly trimmed beard streaked with grey, his bloodshot eyes revealing sleepless nights and constant hangovers. "I need to see him," he murmured to his reflection. "I need to..." But how could a man in his situation even approach a billionaire? How to explain 18 years of absence? How to justify the abandonment on a stormy night when a premature baby was fighting for his life in the neonatal ICU? The rain continued to fall outside, its rhythmic sound reminiscent of that fateful night. August returned to the living room and turned off the television, plunging the apartment into dimness. He wouldn't be able to sleep, not after this discovery. His son was alive, prosperous, and, ironically, more distant than ever. In his mind, a plan began to form. Tomorrow he would go to the building where Theo's company was located. He didn't know exactly what he would do or say, but he needed to see him up close, to confirm with his own eyes that that bright young man was really the baby he abandoned on a night of despair. What August didn't know was that his impulse to reconnect would trigger a series of events that would forever change not only his life, but also the life of the son he never knew. And that the past he had tried so hard to bury was about to resurface in ways he could never imagine. The imposing facade of the office building gleamed under the morning sun. August, wearing his only dress shirt, worn at the cuffs and collar, watched the steady flow of executives entering and leaving through the revolving doors. Each person who passed seemed to carry with them an aura of success that made him feel even smaller. Gathering all his courage, he crossed the square in front of the building and headed to the reception desk. The receptionist, a young woman of impeccable appearance, raised her eyes from her computer and examined him with an expression that mixed suspicion and disdain. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone making it clear that she would rather not. I need to speak with Theo Rivers," August stammered, his hands sweating. "It's a personal matter." The receptionist let out a sigh of irritation. "Sir, Dr. Rivers does not see people without an appointment. And even with an appointment, you need to have an agenda approved beforehand." "Please," August insisted, leaning over the counter. "It's very important. I am..." The words died in his throat. What was he? A father who abandoned his own son, a failure trying to approach a successful young man. Before he could complete the sentence, two burly security guards were already approaching. "Any problem, Renata?" asked one of them, positioning himself strategically next to August. "This gentleman is insisting on seeing Dr. Rivers without an appointment," she replied, making a discreet gesture with her head. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to leave," the security guard said, his heavy hand landing on August's shoulder. "Otherwise, we will be forced to take more serious measures." August's heart was beating erratically. "You don't understand," he tried to explain, his voice trembling. "I need to talk to him. It's about the locket, about the stormy night." "Just another crazy trying to take advantage," muttered the other security guard, grabbing August by the arm. "Come on, let's go!" Before he could protest, August was practically dragged out of the building. His feet barely touched the ground as the security guards led him energetically to the sidewalk. With a final push, he found himself back in the square, his dignity as crumpled as his dress shirt. Some people passing by watched the scene with curiosity. Others looked away, embarrassed. August remained there, paralyzed, feeling the weight of humiliation. It was then that he noticed a woman watching him with a mixture of pity and interest. Unlike the other employees of the building, she wore a simple uniform with the company's logo. "Hey," she called, approaching cautiously. "Are you okay?" August wiped away a stubborn tear with the back of his hand. "I'm okay," he replied, his voice hoarse. "I just really needed to talk to someone inside." The woman looked around as if checking that she wasn't being watched. and lowered her voice. "I'm Sophia Mendez, the General Services Manager. If you really want a chance to get close to Dr. Rivers, maybe I can help." August stared at her, confused. "How?" "We need people for the night cleaning crew," she explained. "The salary isn't great, but you would have access to the building. It's better than trying to break in and ending up getting arrested, don't you think?" The proposal hit August like a ray of hope in the midst of darkness. Working as a janitor in the same building, where his son was the owner and president? The irony of the situation did not escape him, but what choice did he have? "When can I start?" he asked, trying to contain the anxiety in his voice. Sophia smiled slightly. "Show up tonight after 8 p.m. at the service entrance. Bring your documents. I'll find a way to expedite your hiring." That same night, August began his work as a janitor on the night shift. The dark blue uniform weighed on his shoulders like an armor in reverse, marking not his nobility, but his decay. As he pushed the cleaning cart through the silent hallways, his calloused hands now holding cleaning products instead of business documents, he tried to process the strangeness of his situation. The 30th floor, where Theo's office was located, was his final destination for the night. Sophia had specifically assigned him to that area after he told her an edited version of his story, omitting being Theo's biological father, but mentioning an old connection with the family that needed to be resolved. When the service elevator finally opened on the executive floor, August felt his heart race. The low lights created elongated shadows, and the silence was broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning. Through the glass walls, the city sparkled below like a carpet of stars. Theo's office occupied the entire north side of the floor. August began to clean the space methodically, his eyes absorbing every detail. Photos on the walls showed important moments: Theo receiving awards, closing deals, always with that contained smile that didn't completely reach his eyes. On a side table, a particular photograph caught his attention. Theo as a child, hugging Sylvia Rivers in front of a modest birthday cake. The genuine happiness on both faces made August's stomach clench. That woman had given his son everything he couldn't: love, stability, education. While wiping the cloth over Theo's desk, something fell and rolled across the floor. Stooping to pick it up, August discovered it was a small velvet box. Inside it, a locket identical to the one that appeared around Theo's neck on TV, the same one he had left with the baby on that fateful night. "What are you doing?" The voice cut through the silence like a razor. August turned sharply, almost knocking over his cleaning cart. Standing at the office door was Theo Rivers in person, his slender figure casting a long shadow on the carpet. The moment August had planned so much had finally arrived, but he wasn't prepared. How to explain his presence there? How to justify holding the locket? How to tell this imposing young man that the man in a janitor's uniform before him was his father? The silence that followed seemed to contain the weight of 18 years of unrevealed secrets. "I'm sorry, sir," August stammered, quickly placing the locket back in the box. "I was just cleaning and you thought it appropriate to meddle with my personal belongings?" Theo's voice was controlled, but there was a note of tension that revealed his irritation. He approached with measured steps, his Italian shoes echoing on the floor. August felt his hands tremble. There, less than 2 meters away, was his son. Up close, the resemblance to Olivia was even more impressive. The same expressive eyes, the same delicate shape of the face, even the way he tilted his head slightly when concentrated. "I'm so sorry," he managed to say, looking down. "It won't happen again." Theo picked up the box with the locket and examined it carefully, as if checking if anything had been damaged. His face softened for a moment as he touched the jewel, and August realized that that object carried a special meaning for him as well. "You're new here," Theo observed, putting the box in a drawer. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. I started today. At 11:47 p.m. on a Friday. Theo raised an eyebrow, consulting his expensive wristwatch. It's not a common time for a first day of work. Before August could elaborate a response, a sound of hurried heels echoed down the hallway. Sylvia Rivers appeared at the door, her normally serene face marked by a worrying pallor. "Theo, honey, you didn't answer my calls," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to talk." The young businessman immediately changed his posture, all the previous authority dissolving into concern. "Mom? What happened? Why did you come here at this hour?" August tried to become invisible, discreetly collecting his cleaning materials, but something in Sylvia's expression kept him paralyzed. There was a fragility in her face that didn't match the strong woman he had seen through the news reports. "The tests," she began, but her voice failed. Her legs seemed to give way, and Theo rushed to support her. "Mom!" Theo's cry echoed through the empty office as he guided Sylvia to the nearest sofa. "Someone call an ambulance." Without thinking twice, August picked up his cell phone and dialed 911, providing the address of the building with the precision of someone who knew the place well. As he spoke, he watched Theo hold Sylvia's hand, whispering words of comfort. "Everything will be all right, Mom," he repeated, his voice choked. "We'll get through this together." Sylvia tried to smile, but the gesture turned into a grimace of pain. "I'm sorry, son. I didn't want to worry you like this, but the doctors said the tumor—" The world seemed to stop for August. Tumor. The word hit him like a punch to the gut. The woman who had saved and raised his son was sick, possibly dying. "Sir," August called, addressing Theo, "the ambulance is on its way. Do you want me to go down and guide them up here?" Theo nodded absently, all his attention focused on Sylvia, who was now breathing with difficulty. "Yes, please, and thank you." In the minutes that followed, August coordinated the arrival of the paramedics, guiding them through the corridors to the office. He watched, with a heavy heart, as they carried Sylvia on the gurney, Theo beside her, holding her hand, as if he could keep her anchored to life through that contact. When the last echo of the gurney wheels disappeared into the elevator, August was left alone in the office, surrounded by forgotten cleaning supplies and the overwhelming weight of the situation. Life had a cruel sense of irony. At the moment, he had finally gotten close to his son. Fate threatened to take away from him the only mother he had ever truly known. In the days that followed, August continued his cleaning work, but now with a different purpose. Through the comments of employees who worked late, he pieced together the puzzle. Sylvia had been diagnosed with a rare type of brain tumor. The prognosis was not good, and the available treatments in the country were limited. Theo practically moved into the office, working all night, dividing his time between the hospital and the company. August watched him from afar, noticing the increasingly deep circles under his eyes, the clothes that no longer seemed so impeccable, the tremor in his hands when he held his 10th cup of coffee. One night, about 2 weeks after the incident, August found Theo alone in the conference room, surrounded by papers and with his laptop open. But he wasn't working. He held an old photograph and wept silently. The paternal instinct that August had suppressed for so many years screamed inside him. He wanted to hug that young man, to say that he understood his pain, that he too had lost someone he loved. But he couldn't. He was just the janitor, a stranger. "Mr. Rivers," he called softly, feigning surprise at finding him there. "Sorry, I didn't know there was still someone on the floor." Theo quickly wiped his eyes, trying to regain his professional composure. "It's okay. I was just reviewing some documents." August pretended to busy himself with the trash, giving the young man time to compose himself. "It must be tough, all this work." The work is the easy part, Theo replied, his voice laden with bitterness. The hard part is seeing someone you love suffer and not being able to do anything. Sometimes, August ventured, choosing his words carefully, the only thing we can do is be present. That already means a lot. Theo looked at him with renewed interest. You speak like someone who's been through something similar. I have. August admitted, his heart racing. I lost my wife a long time ago. She was everything to me. A moment of silent understanding passed between them. For the first time, they were not boss and employee, billionaire and janitor. They were just two men united by the universal experience of pain. How did you deal with it? Theo asked, his voice almost a whisper. Badly, August replied honestly. I made mistakes I regret to this day, but I learned that running from pain only makes it deeper. You have to face it even when it seems impossible. Theo nodded slowly, absorbing the words. You know, since my mother got sick, I've been researching experimental treatments abroad. There's a clinic in Germany developing a new therapy, but... He paused, running his hands over his tired face. The cost is astronomical even for me, and with the problems that are arising in the company. Problems? August couldn't contain the question. Nothing you need to worry about, Theo replied, returning to his defensive posture. It's getting late. You should go home. But August didn't go home that night. After Theo finally left the office, he carefully examined the forgotten documents on the table. What he found made his blood run cold. Ricardo Valente, the same man who had ruined him 18 years ago, was involved in a complex legal maneuver to take control of Theo's company. History was about to repeat itself, and August realized that he couldn't allow his son to suffer the same fate as he had. But how could he help without revealing his true identity? How to protect Theo without exposing the past he had tried so hard to bury? That morning, while putting away his cleaning supplies in the basement closet, August made a decision. He would not allow Ricardo Valente to destroy another life. Even if he had to remain in the shadows, he would find a way to prevent history from repeating itself. He owed it not only to Theo, but also to Olivia and Sylvia, the two women who, each in their own way, had given everything for his son. The next morning, August could barely keep his eyes open as he drank his reheated coffee. He had spent the night awake, turning over in his mind the discoveries about Ricardo Valente. The newspaper on his table showed a photo of the businessman at a charity event, his calculated smile as fake as the promises he had made 18 years ago. How didn't I notice before? He murmured to himself, studying Ricardo's trajectory in recent years. After ruining August's construction company, he had repeated the same pattern with other companies. He approached them as an investor, gained their trust, and at the right moment destroyed everything, emerging even richer from the rubble he left behind. August's phone vibrated. It was Sophia. Where are you? We need to talk. 20 minutes later, they met at the diner across from the office building. Sophia seemed agitated, stirring nervously in her coffee cup. What's going on, August? The executives are all in a panic. I heard the company could collapse in a matter of weeks. August leaned forward, lowering his voice. Sophia, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise me you'll keep it a secret. In the next few minutes, he revealed his story. Not all of it, but enough for Sophia to understand the gravity of the situation. He told her about his past as a businessman, about how Ricardo had destroyed him, about the pattern that was now repeating itself with Theo. Oh my God, Sophia whispered, her eyes wide. That's why you wanted this job so badly. But why don't you tell all this to Dr. Rivers? Who would believe a bankrupt janitor? August laughed humorlessly. I need concrete proof before I make any accusations. Sophia was silent for a moment. Then her eyes lit up. Maybe I can help. As the General Services Manager, I have access to all areas of the building, including the archives in the basement. The archives? Yes. All the companies that have been located in this building over the past 20 years have documents archived there. If Ricardo Valente has a pattern, like you say, there should be traces. The idea was risky, but it was the best chance they had. That same night, after most of the employees had gone home, Sophia led August through little-used corridors to a heavy door on the third basement level. The archives were a labyrinth of metal shelves, illuminated by flickering fluorescent lamps. The smell of old paper and mildew was suffocating. "We have to be quick," Sophia warned, consulting her watch. "The security rounds pass here every hour." Over the next few weeks, August and Sophia developed a routine. After normal business hours, while he pretended to clean the upper floors, Sophia helped him sift through the old files. Little by little, they were putting together a frightening mosaic of Ricardo's activities. One night, while examining a particularly revealing folder, they heard voices approaching. Sophia quickly turned off the flashlight, pulling August behind. A shelf. "The plan is working perfectly." The voice was unmistakable. Ricardo Valente. "In 2 weeks, the Rivero Kids Company will be mine." "But what if he finds out?" another voice asked. "The kid is smarter than his old man was." August felt his heart stop. His old man. Ricardo knew about his connection to Theo? "Impossible," Ricardo laughed. "That idiot August is probably dead somewhere. And even if he isn't, I doubt he has the guts to show up after what he did." The footsteps and voices faded away, but August remained motionless, his mind processing what he had just heard. Sophia squeezed his arm gently. "August," she whispered, "you didn't tell me the whole truth, did you?" He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his secrets. "No, Sophia, I didn't." That night, sitting in a 24-hour diner far from the office building, August finally revealed his entire story to Sophia. He spoke about Olivia, about the stormy night, about the baby he abandoned and who was now one of the most powerful men in the country. "He's your son," Sophia murmured, assimilating the revelation. "That's why you're so determined to protect him." "I don't deserve to be his father," August admitted, his voice choked. "Sylvia played that role much better than I ever could. But I can't allow Ricardo to destroy his life like he destroyed mine." Sophia reached across the table, taking his hand. "Then let's stop it together." The following days were a race against time. While continuing their investigation in the archives, August watched from afar the changes in Theo. The young businessman seemed increasingly dejected, torn between visits to the hospital and desperate attempts to save his company. One afternoon, August found him again alone in the office, hunched over a pile of documents. But there was something different in his posture, an air of defeat that he had never seen before. "Want some coffee, sir?" he offered, approaching cautiously. Theo raised his eyes, and August noticed that they were red. "No, thanks. Actually, could you bring me something stronger? There must be some whiskey in the conference room bar." "With all due respect, sir," August replied, "alcohol never helped anyone solve." "And problems, believe me, I know." Theo laughed bitterly. "What kind of problems could a janitor have to compare to mine?" The words hit August like a slap in the face, but he maintained his composure. "You'd be surprised. I used to own a construction company, you know? Until a partner betrayed me and took everything. I lost my company, my wife, my—" He stopped, abruptly, realizing he had said too much. Theo was now watching him with renewed interest. "Go on," the young man asked. "What else did you lose?" August felt his throat tighten. "Everything," he replied simply. "I lost everything." A heavy silence fell over the office. Outside, the city began to turn on its lights, creating a shimmering carpet that stretched to the horizon. "My mother got worse," Theo said suddenly. The doctor said that without the experimental treatment in Germany, she has a maximum of 3 months. And now, with the company about to be taken over by Ricardo Valente, I can't even give her that. The name Ricardo made August shudder. You, said Ricardo Valente. Do you know him? More than I'd like to, August replied, choosing his words carefully. In fact, he was the one who destroyed my company, and it wasn't the first or last time he did that. Theo stood up abruptly, his eyes shining with a mixture of hope and despair. What do you know about him? At that moment, August made a decision that would change everything. He picked up his cell phone and called Sophia. Bring the files, he said simply. Half an hour later, Theo's office was covered in documents. Sophia and August presented all the evidence they had collected. Ricardo's pattern of destruction, his illegal maneuvers, the ties to influential people who protected him. This is unbelievable, Theo murmured, examining the papers. How did you get all this? Let's just say your cleaning crew is more efficient than it seems, Sophia replied with a small smile. But before they could elaborate a plan of action, Theo's phone rang. It was from the hospital. His face paled as he listened. My mother, he said after hanging up, his voice trembling. She had a seizure. They need to operate on her urgently. August felt as if the floor disappeared under his feet. The past and the present collided violently in his mind. Another night of emergency, another hospital, another precious life hanging by a thread. Go, he said firmly. Sophia and I will organize all of this. We'll be here when you get back. Theo hesitated for a moment, looking at the mountain of evidence on his desk. Why are you helping me? Why do you care so much? The question hit August like an arrow. How many times had he rehearsed the truth in his mind? How many nights had he spent imagining this moment? But now was not the time. His son needed to be by the side of his real mother, the woman who had raised and loved him when he couldn't or wouldn't do it. Because sometimes, he replied softly, life gives us a second chance to do the right thing. Theo nodded, grabbed his coat, and left hastily. When the sound of his footsteps disappeared down the hall, Sophia placed her hand on August's shoulder. Are you going to tell him someday? August looked at the photo of Theo and Sylvia on the wall, his heart heavy with secrets and regrets. First, we need to save them, both the company and Sylvia. Then I'll face the consequences of who I really am. The hospital corridor pulsed with a nervous energy as August and Sophia waited for news. It was past 3 a.m, and the characteristic smell of hospital disinfectant brought back memories that August preferred to keep buried. Somewhere in that same hospital, 18 years ago, he had made the decision that would forever change the course of several lives. Theo had been in the ICU with Sylvia since she came out of emergency surgery. The doctors had managed to stabilize her, but the prognosis remained grim. The tumor was growing faster than expected, and without the experimental treatment from Germany, the options were practically non-existent. I can't waste any more time, Theo declared, emerging in the hallway with deep circles under his eyes and his tie loosened. I need to resolve this situation with Ricardo before it's too late. Son, the word escaped August's lips before he could contain it. Fortunately, Theo seemed too distracted to notice the slip. The documents you found, continued the young businessman, running his hands through his disheveled hair. We need to use them somehow, but Ricardo has powerful connections. If we act without thinking, he could destroy all the evidence. Sophia, who had been silent until then, stepped forward. Maybe we need someone who knows how he operates, someone who has been through this before. Her meaningful look towards August did not go unnoticed by Theo. You, he pointed to August, you said he destroyed your company. How exactly did that happen? August felt his heart race. It was a chance to share part of his story, even if he couldn't reveal the whole truth. It was a promising construction company, he began, his voice hoarse with the memories. Ricardo came along offering investment, expertise, connections. At first, everything seemed perfect. He had a way of making you trust him, of making you believe he was your friend. Theo nodded, recognizing the pattern. He did the exact same. And thing to me, he came talking about the potential of my company, about how we could revolutionize the financial market together. The con comes in stages, August continued. First, he identifies a promising company with a young and idealistic leader. Then he slowly gains trust, always presenting himself as a mentor. When you least expect it, he already has access to everything: documents, accounts, passwords. But how does he legally take control? Contracts, Sophia interjected, picking up one of the folders they had brought. Look at this. In every case, including yours, Dr. Rivers, Ricardo inserts seemingly harmless clauses that are only activated in specific situations. Theo took the documents, his eyes quickly scanning the pages, like this one, about the need for unanimous approval from the board for any structural changes in the company. Exactly, August confirmed. In my case, he used that clause to prevent me from making an urgent restructuring. When the company started to sink, he activated another clause that gave him total power in case of financial crisis. The young entrepreneur threw the papers onto a nearby chair, frustrated. He's doing the same thing to me. He blocked all attempts to raise capital for my mother's treatment, knowing that it would leave the company vulnerable. But this time he made a mistake, Sophia said, a determined gleam in her eyes. He didn't count on someone who knew his method. From the inside, at that moment, a nurse appeared in the hallway. "Dr. Rivers, your mother is asking for you." Theo hesitated, torn between the need to be with Sylvia and the urgency of resolving the situation with Ricardo. "Go," August said softly. "Sophia and I will continue working on this. Your mother needs you now." After Theo disappeared into the ICU room, Sophia turned to August. "There's something you're not telling us about Ricardo, isn't there? Something beyond the destruction of your company." August closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the memories. "Ricardo wasn't just my partner. He and Olivia, my wife, knew each other from college. In fact, they almost got married before she met me." Sophia's eyes widened. "You think—" "I'm sure of it," August cut in. "His obsession with destroying promising companies isn't just about money, it's personal. Every young entrepreneur he ruins is a way to get revenge on me, to repeatedly destroy the man who stole Olivia from him." "Oh my God," Sophia whispered. "So when he finds out who Theo really is, he'll destroy him with even more pleasure," August completed, his face pale. "We can't let that happen." The following hours were dedicated to meticulous planning. Sophia used her contacts in the building to map Ricardo's routine, while August organized the evidence in a sequence that proved not only the pattern of fraud, but also the businessman's unhealthy obsession. The next morning, as the sun rose over the city, Theo returned to the hallway. He seemed to have aged years in a single night. "The doctors say she has a maximum of 2 weeks without the treatment." His voice was choked. "I need to get that money, no matter how." It was then that August made a decision that could change everything or destroy what little he had built. "Dr. Rivers," he began, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands, "there's something you need to know about Ricardo Valente. Something that might give us the edge we need." "What is it?" "I can't tell you everything now, but I need you to trust me. Tomorrow is the board meeting, isn't it? The one that will decide the future of the company." Theo nodded, confused. "Ricardo will be there, surrounded by his allies, ready to deliver the final blow," August continued. "But what if we could turn the tables? What if we could make his obsession with destroying turn into his own destruction?" "What are you talking about?" Have you noticed how he seems especially determined to ruin you? How it seems too personal to be just business?" Theo frowned thoughtfully. "Now that you mention it, he always makes strange comments about how I remind him of someone he knew, about how it's going to be a special pleasure to see me fall." "Because it's personal," Sophia interfered, understanding August's plan, "and we're going to use that against him." The three spent the next hour elaborating a strategy. It was risky, depended on perfect timing, and could easily backfire, but it was the only chance they had. "Are you sure about this?" Sophia asked August when they were alone again. If it goes wrong, I lose my son for the second time," he replied, his voice full of emotion. "But if we do nothing, I lose him and Sylvia anyway." In the ICU room, Sylvia slept a restless sleep, monitored by machines that beeped at a constant rhythm. Theo held her hand, watching the face of the woman who had dedicated her life to raising him. "I promise, Mom," he whispered, "I'll get your treatment, even if I have to face the devil himself." What he didn't know was that the real confrontation would be much more personal and much more painful than anyone could imagine, and that in the next 24 hours, secrets buried 18 years ago would come to light, forever changing the fate of everyone involved. The boardroom on the 30th floor was plunged into a tense silence the next morning. The members of the board, all in their impeccable suits, occupied their chairs around the massive mahogany table. Ricardo Valente, sitting to Theo's right, wore a discreet smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. Outside the room, August and Sophia made the final adjustments to their cleaning crew uniforms. August's hands trembled slightly as he straightened his badge. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Sophia whispered, adjusting the service cart they had prepared especially for that morning. "I have no choice," he replied, checking once more the envelope in his pocket. "It's our only chance." Inside the room, Ricardo began his presentation. Graphs and numbers filled the projection screen, all carefully manipulated to show a company on the verge of collapse. "As you can see, gentlemen," his smooth voice echoed through the room, "the situation is critical. The young Theo's emotional decisions, especially his obsession with diverting resources to experimental medical treatments, have put our company at risk." Theo clenched his fists under the table, containing the anger that threatened to overflow. He knew that every word of Ricardo was part of a meticulously crafted plan, but it still hurt to hear his concern for his mother being used against him. "Fortunately," Ricardo continued, "Clause 47 of our partnership agreement provides for exactly this type of situation. In cases of reckless management, the board can vote to transfer operational control to—" The boardroom door opened silently. August and Sophia entered, pushing the cleaning cart, pretending not to notice the meeting in progress. "Excuse us," Sophia said apologetically. "We need to do the routine cleaning of the blinds. It's standard procedure in the morning to avoid dust buildup." Ricardo made a gesture of irritation. "Can't it wait? We're in the middle of an important meeting." "I'm sorry, sir," August replied, his voice purposefully submissive. "It's direct orders from the building management, health and safety issue." While Sophia began cleaning the farthest blinds, August approached the windows behind Ricardo. The businessman turned his attention back to the presentation, ignoring the presence of the cleaning staff. "As I was saying, the situation requires drastic measures. I propose an immediate vote to—" "It's curious," August interrupted, his voice changing completely, "how some stories tend to repeat themselves." Ricardo froze for a moment, then turned slowly. His eyes widened as he faced August, and all the blood seemed to drain from his face. "You—" "Hello, Ricardo," August said calmly, abandoning his servile posture. "Long time no see. 18 years, to be exact." Chaos erupted in the room. The Members of the board exchanged confused glances, while Theo watched the scene with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Security!" Ricardo shouted, standing up abruptly. "Get this man out of here!" "Not so fast," Sophia interjected, distributing folders to each member of the board. "I think you'll want to see this first." The folders contained copies of all the documents they had found in the archives, along with detailed analyses of Ricardo's fraudulent maneuvers over the years. "What is this?" one of the older board members asked, adjusting his glasses as he examined the papers. "This, gentleman," August replied, without taking his eyes off Ricardo, "is the real reason why we're all here today. It's not about Theo's management nor about medical treatments. It's about a man who has spent the last 2 decades destroying companies for personal revenge." Ricardo laughed nervously, but his face was covered in sweat. "This is ridiculous. This man is a mentally disturbed janitor. You can't believe—" "I do," Theo interrupted, standing up, "because every document in those folders tells the exact same story that you tried to create here. The same pattern, the same clauses, the same results." Sophia turned on the projector they had hidden in the cleaning cart. On the screen, a presentation showed side by side the contracts of several companies destroyed by Ricardo, including August's old construction company. "Notice the similarities," she pointed out. "The same legal structures, always protected by seemingly harmless clauses that are only activated in specific moments." The board members began to murmur among themselves, flipping through the documents. With growing concern, "This proves nothing," Ricardo said, but his voice trembled. "They're just coincidences, coincidences." August took a step forward. "How was it a coincidence that you appeared in Theo's life exactly when he started to succeed? How was it a coincidence that you tried to destroy him in the same way you tried to destroy me?" "What are you talking about?" Theo asked, his voice full of confusion. Ricardo looked from August to Theo, then a cruel smile formed on his lips. "Ah, so he doesn't know. You didn't tell him, August. What a coward you continue to be." "No," August replied firmly. "The coward here is you, Ricardo. Always was. Coward for not accepting that Olivia chose another man. Coward for using your money and influence to destroy innocent people." The name Olivia caused a visible reaction in Ricardo. His eyes filled with an old, barely contained fury. "Don't you dare say her name." He practically spat the words. "You killed her. You and your obsession with success, your damn company. If she had stayed with me, she would have been unhappy." August completed softly. "Because she didn't love you, Ricardo, and you never could accept that." The room was in complete silence now, all eyes fixed on the scene that was unfolding. Theo seemed to be trying to piece together a puzzle that was beginning to make a terrible sense. "Olivia," he murmured. "Was that my biological mother's name?" The question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Ricardo looked from August to Theo, then began to laugh, a hysterical, almost maniacal laugh. "Oh, this is perfect," he exclaimed. "Simply perfect. The great Theo Rivers, the financial prodigy, is actually the son of the failed August Mendonça, the man who destroyed Olivia's life. Don't you see? It's poetic justice." Theo staggered as if he had been punched. His eyes met August's, seeking a denial that didn't come. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice just a whisper. August felt the weight of 18 years of secrets on his shoulders. This was not the way he had planned to tell the truth, but Ricardo had left him no choice. "Yes," he replied simply. "I am your biological father." The silence that followed was deafening. The members of the board seemed to be watching a live soap opera, unable to tear their eyes away from the drama that unfolded before them. "Now, do you understand?" Ricardo asked the board members, his voice full of poison. "All of this is just a pathetic show by a failed father trying to redeem himself. Those documents mean nothing." "On the contrary," Sophia interjected, projecting, "a new set of documents. They mean everything, because they prove that your obsession isn't just with companies, Ricardo. It's with people. With destroying anyone who reminds you of August, anyone who has what you couldn't have. The board members examined the new documents with growing horror. Emails, bank transfers, records that showed how Ricardo had manipulated events behind the scenes for years, always with the goal of causing as much damage as possible. You followed me, Theo realized suddenly. From the beginning, it wasn't a coincidence that you appeared in my company. You knew who I was. Of course I knew, Ricardo exploded. How could I not know? You're identical to her, the same eyes, the same smile. It was like seeing her again, mocking me through you. The confession echoed through the room, sealing Ricardo's fate. The board members began to stand up, some already grabbing their phones to make urgent calls. This meeting is adjourned, the chairman of the board declared. And I strongly suggest you seek out your lawyers, Mr. Valente. I believe you will have a lot to explain in the coming days. But Theo barely heard. His eyes were fixed on August, the man he had known as a simple janitor, but who carried the weight of his origin. Why now? He asked finally. Why after all these years? August took a step towards him, but Theo recoiled. No! Don't come near me. You don't have that right. Not after 18 years. Theo, please. No. The young businessman's voice was full of pain and anger. My mother is dying in that hospital. My real mother. The only one who matters. And you're just another person who chose to abandon me. With those words, Theo left the room, leaving behind a silence as heavy as lead. Ricardo was escorted out by security guards, still laughing. His disturbed laugh. The board members dispersed quickly, leaving only August and Sophia in the now empty room. I'm sorry, Sophia said softly, placing a hand on August's shoulder. It wasn't supposed to end like this. No, he replied, looking out the window at the city that stretched out below. But maybe it's exactly what I deserve. What none of them knew was that this dramatic confrontation was just the beginning. In the coming days, even deeper secrets would come to light, and the lives of everyone involved would be transformed in ways that no one could foresee. The hours that followed the board meeting were a blur of frenetic activity in the office building, while lawyers came and went carrying stacks of documents and journalists gathered in the reception area trying to sniff out the story. August remained sitting alone in the basement cleaning room, staring at the uniform that now seemed to weigh a ton. Sophia entered hastily, closing the door behind her. The police just took Ricardo in for questioning. It seems they found a lot more than we expected when they started investigating his accounts. August just nodded, his gaze lost on an invisible point on the peeling wall. You need to go to the hospital, Sophia continued, her voice softer. Theo is there with Sylvia. After what happened, he doesn't want to see me, August interrupted, his voice hoarse, and he has every right. I abandoned him, Sophia. I left my own son in a hospital and disappeared for 18 years. But you had your reasons, she argued, sitting down beside him. You were devastated by Olivia's death, ruined by Ricardo. Stop! He stood up abruptly. Stop trying to defend me. There's no justification for what I did. Olivia, she would have hated me if she knew. She would have despised me. Sophia watched in silence as August walked back and forth in the small room, decades of guilt and regret finally overflowing. You know what's worse, he continued, his voice choked. Seeing the incredible man he's become, knowing that I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Sylvia did it all alone, working 2 jobs, giving him all the love and support I should have given. And now she's dying, Sophia completed softly. The words hung in the air like a sentence. August stopped pacing, leaning heavily against the wall. Theo is desperate trying to get the money for the treatment in Germany, Sophia continued. With Ricardo out of the way, maybe... How much? August asked abruptly. What? How much does the treatment cost? Sophia hesitated. From what I heard, about 2 million euros, not including hospitalization costs and... Sell my apartment, August declared, taking a set of keys from his pocket. And my old car, too. It's not much, but... August, you can't. I can, he interrupted her. It's the least I can do. Not for Theo. He would never accept money from me, but for Sylvia. She saved my son when I abandoned him. She gave him everything I couldn't. Sophia took the keys reluctantly. And where are you going to live? A sad smile crossed August's face. I have a friend who owes me some favors. I can stay in his construction site warehouse for a while. Before Sophia could protest, the room door opened violently. It was Carlos, one of the night shift security guards, panting and with a pale face. You need to see this, he said, turning on the small TV in the corner of the room. The news was showing live images of the hospital. The reporter, clearly agitated, reported the latest developments. Repeating the breaking news, Ricardo Valente, the businessman involved in a financial scandal that came to light this morning, was found unconscious in his cell at the police station. Sources indicate a possible suicide attempt, but the most shocking thing is the documents found in his apartment, revealing a decades-long obsession with the Mendonça Rivers family. The camera showed an ambulance arriving at the hospital, and for a brief moment, August glimpsed Theo standing at the entrance of the emergency room, his face a mask of shock and confusion. Oh my God, Sophia whispered. What did Ricardo do? The answer came in the following hours, as the details began to emerge. The investigators had found a real shrine in a secret room in Ricardo's apartment. Walls covered with photos of Olivia, newspaper clippings about August's construction company, and, most disturbingly, hundreds of detailed records about Theo since his childhood. He followed us for years, Theo explained later that night when August finally mustered the courage to go to the hospital. He had photos of me at school, reports on my grades, even medical records. It was like he was studying an experiment. They were in the ICU hallway. Theo sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, August keeping a respectful distance a few feet away. Between them, 18. Years of absence weighed like an invisible wall. Why didn't you ever look for me? Theo asked suddenly, his voice filled with an old pain. Even after I started appearing in the newspapers, even when I launched the company. Why? August felt the tears he had been holding back for so long finally start to fall. Because I was a coward, he replied honestly. Because every time I saw your face, every time I read about your achievements, the guilt consumed me even more. You were better off without me. That wasn't your decision to make, Theo retorted, his voice trembling. I grew up imagining 1,000 different reasons for being abandoned, imagining if there was something wrong with me, if I wasn't worthy of being loved. No! August took a step forward, then held back. There was never anything wrong with you. The mistake was mine, only mine. I lost your mother. I lost everything I had built, and instead of fighting for my son, I chose to run. The silence that followed was interrupted only by the constant beeping of the monitors in Sylvia's room. She knew, Theo said finally. My mother, Sylvia, always knew who you were. I found a diary of hers last night while I was looking for some old documents. August felt his heart stop for a moment. What? She wrote about the night she found me, about the locket, about how she discovered your identity through the hospital records, but she chose not to look for you because she was afraid. A weak voice came from the doorway. Sylvia was awake, leaning against the doorframe, looking extremely fragile in her hospital gown. "Mom, you shouldn't be standing." Theo rushed to support her. "I needed to talk," she insisted, her eyes fixed on August. "I needed to explain. I was afraid of losing my son. Afraid that if you came back, you would take away the only thing that gave meaning to my life." August felt his legs weaken. Sophia, who had quietly arrived in the hallway, rushed to help him sit down. "I never," he began, but Sylvia interrupted him with a weak gesture. "I know now, but at the time, you don't understand what it's like to be a single woman, in love with a baby that isn't yours, fearing every day that someone will come and take him away from you." Her words hit August like physical blows. All this time, while he drowned in guilt and regret, Sylvia carried her own fears and secrets. "What happened with Ricardo?" she continued, her voice failing. "That proves I was right to be afraid. He watched us for years, planning his revenge, using my son as a pawn in his sick game of obsession." Mom, please, you need to rest," Theo pleaded, noticing how she was getting paler with each word. "Not before I say what I need to," she insisted. "August, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not looking for you, for allowing Ricardo to continue his revenge for..." Her words were interrupted by a violent coughing fit. Theo picked her up as if she weighed nothing, carrying her back to bed while calling for the nurses. In the chaos that followed, with doctors and nurses rushing into the room, August remained paralyzed in the hallway. Sophia held his hand, offering the only comfort she could. "What have I done?" he murmured, more to himself than to her. "My God, what have I done?" The night dragged on long and tense in the hospital. While Sylvia fought for her life a few rooms away, 3 people burdened with secrets and regrets waited in a silent hallway, each lost in their own thoughts, each wondering how so many lives could have been destroyed by choices made so long ago. The early morning slowly advanced in the hospital, marked by the monotonous sound of medical equipment and the occasional footsteps of nurses in the hallway. Theo was sitting next to Sylvia's bed, watching the pale face of his adoptive mother as she slept, a restless sleep induced by medication. Outside the room, August remained sitting on the floor of the hallway, unable to leave, but without the courage to approach. Sophia returned, bringing coffee for everyone, her heels echoing on the granite floor. "I managed to talk to a broker," she whispered to August. "He said he can appraise your apartment today. Hopefully we can get a buyer quickly." "It won't be enough," August replied, his voice hoarse. "Even selling everything I have, it doesn't even come close to the amount needed for the treatment." "Then let's think of another solution," she insisted. "There has to be a way." They were interrupted by the arrival of a nurse carrying a clipboard. "Excuse me, I need to speak with Dr. Rivers. It's about the documents for the international transfer." Theo left the room, closing the door gently behind him. He seemed to have aged years in just a few hours, his young features marked by deep exhaustion. "Transfer?" Sophia asked. "The clinic in Germany," Theo explained, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "They have an opening, but they need a down payment of 500,000 euros by tomorrow to secure the spot. With Ricardo arrested and the company's accounts frozen during the investigation." His voice failed, and for the first time since, the whole truth came to light. August saw not the successful businessman, but the scared boy he could have raised. "I have an idea," Sophia said suddenly, her eyes shining. "But you need to trust me, Theo, and you too, August." The 2 men stared at her curiously. "The archives," she continued. "We didn't show all the documents we found about Ricardo. There was more, much more. Records of offshore accounts, undeclared properties." "And how does that help us?" Theo asked. "Because one of those properties is in your biological mother's name," Sophia revealed, taking a crumpled envelope from her pocket. "Ricardo never transferred ownership after her death. Technically, it now belongs to you, Theo." The young businessman took the envelope with trembling hands, examining the documents inside it. Is this real?" "Absolutely," Sophia confirmed. It's a penthouse in Lincoln Park. At current market value, it should be worth more than enough to cover the treatment. A glimmer of hope crossed Theo's exhausted face, but it was soon replaced by doubt. Even if it's true, there's no time. We need the money by tomorrow and a real estate sale. I know someone, August interrupted, standing up. An investor who buys properties for cash without bureaucracy. He owes me some favors from the days of the construction company. Theo stared at him for a long time, a visible conflict in his eyes. Why are you trying to help me after all these years? Because it's the least I can do, August replied softly. Not for me, not to redeem myself, but for her. He pointed to the door of the room where Sylvia rested. She did what I didn't have the courage to do. She loved you, she raised you, she sacrificed everything for you. Let me help her now. Before Theo could answer, a high-pitched sound cut through the air, Sylvia's heart monitor triggering an alarm. In seconds, the medical team invaded the room, pushing Theo out. Pressure dropping, a nurse shouted. Initiate emergency protocol, ordered the doctor. Prepare epinephrine. The next minutes were a blur of frenetic activity. Theo tried to see through the door, his face contorted into a mask of panic. Without thinking, August placed his hand on his shoulder, offering the only comfort he could. Surprisingly, Theo didn't pull away. After what seemed like an eternity, the doctor came out of the room, his face grave. We managed to stabilize her, but not for long. The tumor is growing faster than we anticipated. If we don't start the specialized treatment in the next few days. He didn't need to complete the sentence. The meaning was clear in everyone's eyes. Call your contact, Theo said abruptly, turning to August. Now! The following hours were a race against time. While Sophia stayed at the hospital with Sylvia, August and Theo headed to the office of the investor, Jorge Mendez, a burly man with a cigar permanently stuck between his teeth. August Mendonça, Jorge smiled as he saw him enter. I thought you were dead. Almost, August replied dryly. We need your help, Jorge. It's urgent. While they examined the penthouse documents, Theo watched the interaction between the two, men with growing interest. It was evident that there was a history there, something from the past that his biological father had never mentioned. You know, Jorge commented as he signed the checks, your construction company was the only one that treated me with dignity when I was just a small investor. I never forgot that, August. That was a long time ago, August replied, uncomfortable. Don't much, Jorge insisted. Did you know that land you pointed out to me before, before everything fell apart? It turned into my first successful venture. I owe my fortune to you in a way. Theo absorbed every word, his perceptions, about August slowly transforming. The man he had known as a simple janitor had a much more complex past than he imagined. When they finally left Jorge's office with the necessary checks in hand, the sun was beginning to rise over Chicago. In the car, on the way to the hospital, a heavy silence hung between father and son. Why didn't you ever recover? Theo asked, suddenly. After losing everything to Ricardo, why didn't you try to start over? August kept his eyes on the road, but his hands tightened on the steering wheel. Because it wasn't just the company I had lost. It was your mother, it was you. It was everything that gave meaning to my life. After that, I just gave up. What was she like? Theo's voice was almost a whisper. My biological mother. August felt his heart clench. It was the first time Theo had shown interest in knowing about Olivia. She was extraordinary, he began, his voice choked. She had a smile that lit up any room. She was studious, determined, a dreamer. When she became pregnant with you, even with all the risks, she was so happy. She spent hours decorating the baby's room, talking to you, making plans. Silent. Tears ran down Theo's face. "You know what's most amazing?" August continued. "You have the same smile as her, the same sparkle in your eyes when you talk about something you're passionate about, the same dimples." "Stop," Theo asked softly. "Please," August obeyed, respecting his son's request. The remainder of the journey was made in silence, each lost in their own thoughts and emotions. Upon arriving at the hospital, they found Sophia sleeping in an uncomfortable chair in the hallway. She woke up startled when they approached. "Did you get it?" she asked anxiously. Theo showed the checks, a small smile of relief on his tired face. "I'll wake my mother. She needs to know we got it." As Theo entered the room, Sophia held August's arm. "There's one more thing you need to know," she said, her face serious. "Ricardo, he woke up and he's asking to speak with you." August felt the weight of those words like a physical blow. Ricardo wanted to see him. The man who had destroyed his life, stalked his son, and turned the last 2 decades into a nightmare, was asking for his presence. "You don't have to go," Sophia said softly, noticing his hesitation. "After everything he's done, I need to." August interrupted, his voice firm. "I need to understand why. Why this sick obsession? Why so much hatred?" "Then I'm going with you," a voice declared behind them. Theo had quietly left Sylvia's room. "No," August protested immediately. "You need to stay with your mother. The doctors are going to start preparations for the transfer, and—" "She's sleeping," Theo cut him off. "And this is also about me, about our family, however dysfunctional it is. I need to hear what he has to say." The journey to the floor where Ricardo was hospitalized was made in a tense silence. Sophia stayed behind, promising to take care of Sylvia and let them know if there were any changes. 2 police officers guarded the door to the room. After checking their identifications, they allowed them to enter, but not before warning, "He's handcuffed to the bed, but even so, keep your distance." Ricardo was pale against the white hospital sheets, his wrists fastened by steel handcuffs to the bed rails. Upon seeing them enter, a faint smile formed on his lips. "The family reunited," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "How touching." "What do you want, Ricardo?" August asked, staying close to the door. "Sit," Ricardo indicated the chairs with a nod. "I have a story to tell, one that you need to hear." Theo and August exchanged hesitant glances before sitting down, keeping a safe distance from the bed. "You think you know the whole story," Ricardo began, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. "You think I'm just a bitter man, obsessed with a woman who chose another. But there's so much you don't know. Like the fact that you spied on us for years?" Theo interrupted, his voice filled with contained anger. "No," Ricardo replied softly. "Like the fact that your mother was pregnant when she started dating August." The silence that followed was deafening. August felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. "You're lying," he managed to say finally. "Am I?" Ricardo laughed humorlessly. "Why do you think she agreed to marry you so quickly? Why do you think she was so desperate to build a perfect family?" "My mother loved August," Theo protested, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "Yes, she loved him," Ricardo agreed, to the surprise of both. "That was the worst part of it all. She really fell in love with him. The plan was simple. She was 2 months pregnant. She needed a father for the child. She found a promising and naive businessman enough to believe in love at first sight." August stood up abruptly, his face contorted into a mask of fury. "Shut up! You don't have the right to tell the truth," Ricardo cut him off. "The truth I discovered weeks before. The wedding? The truth that Olivia begged me to keep secret, promising that she had really fallen in love with you." "If that's true," Theo interjected, his voice trembling slightly, "why didn't you tell us back then? Why wait all these years?" Ricardo's smile turned into an expression of old pain. "Because I loved her more than anything," When she told me about the pregnancy, I offered to marry her immediately, but she said she didn't want my pity. Then she left, found August, and I stayed watching from afar, dying a little more each day. August fell heavily back into the chair, his hands trembling. The baby, Theo, isn't your biological son, Ricardo completed softly. He's mine. The world seemed to stop for a moment. Theo looked from one man to the other, his face a mask of shock and confusion. That's why you followed me all these years, he whispered. That's why this obsession. At first, yes, Ricardo admitted. I wanted to be close, protect you from afar. But then the anger started to grow, seeing you being raised by a stranger, seeing August abandon his own son. So you decided to destroy everything, August concluded, his voice dead. No, Ricardo protested with surprising energy. I wanted to reveal the truth. I wanted you to know that you had a father who cared, who never wanted to abandon you. But then something inside me broke. The obsession turned into something darker. It wasn't about love or protection anymore. It was about revenge. Tears streamed silently down Theo's face. All these years, all these lies. They're not lies, a new voice declared from the doorway. The three men turned, surprised. Sophia was standing at the entrance, holding an old folder. What are you doing here? August asked. Sorry, but after you left I kept looking in the archives, she explained, entering the room. And I found this. She opened the folder, taking out a document yellowed with time. It's the DNA test that Olivia did during the pregnancy. She suspected that Ricardo would try something like this, so she kept the proof. Ricardo paled even more, if that was possible. Theo is your son, August, Sophia declared firmly. Ricardo is lying as he has always lied. I also found records from a psychiatrist who treated him years ago. He suffers from a severe obsessive disorder, creating alternate realities to justify his actions. Theo stood up slowly, approaching to examine the document. His hands trembled as he read the results. Why? He asked finally, turning to Ricardo. Why this lie too? The smile had disappeared from Ricardo's face, replaced by an expression of total defeat. Because it was the last card I had left to play. The last chance to cause pain. To separate you again. You're sick, August declared, not with anger, but with a kind of pity. All these years, all this destruction, for nothing. Not for nothing, Ricardo murmured, closing his eyes. For love. A sick, obsessive, destructive love. But still, love. Sophia placed her hand on Theo's shoulder, who looked about to collapse. Let's go. Your mother needs you now. Your real mother, Sylvia. Before leaving, August turned one last time to Ricardo. I hope you find peace, Ricardo. Truly. Because I forgive you. The words seemed to hit Ricardo like a physical blow. A lone tear trickled down his face as he watched father and son leave the room together, side by side for the first time in 18 years. In the hallway, Theo stopped abruptly. Did you know about Ricardo suspecting to be my father? August shook his head. Never. To me, you were always my son. From the first moment Olivia told me about the pregnancy, and even after I ran away like a coward, I never doubted that you were my blood. Theo nodded slowly, processing everything that had happened. We need to get back to Sylvia. She's the only one who matters now. As they walked back to the other floor of the hospital, August realized that something had changed between them. The wall of 18 years of absence had not completely disappeared, but now it had a small breach, a possibility of reconstruction. Sophia followed them in silence, carrying the folder with Ricardo's last lies, praying that somehow all that pain could finally begin to heal. The preparations for Sylvia's transfer to Germany happened at a frenetic pace in the next 48 hours. While a specialized medical team organized the air transport, Theo plunged into a mountain of documents and authorizations, signing papers non-stop while trying to keep his company running remotely. August watched everything from a distance, wanting to help but not knowing exactly how. Sophia had managed to sell his apartment in record time, but as predicted, the amount was insignificant compared to the amount needed for the treatment. Still, he insisted on contributing what he could. "You don't have to do this," said the nurse when he arrived with toiletries and new clothes for Sylvia. "Dr. Rivers has already provided everything." "I know," he replied simply, leaving the items on the armchair in the room while Sylvia slept. "But I need to do something." It was during one of these discreet visits that Sylvia caught him. She had woken up silently and was watching him with tired but attentive eyes. "I thought it was you," she said softly. "The nurses mentioned the man who always brings things when no one is looking." August froze, unsure how to react. It was the first time they had been truly alone since the whole truth came to light. "Sit down," she asked, indicating the chair next to the bed. "We need to talk." He obeyed, feeling uncomfortably large and awkward in the small hospital chair. Sylvia studied him for a moment before speaking again. "You know what haunted me the most all these years?" she asked rhetorically. "The fear, not just of losing Theo, but of discovering that I wasn't a good mother to him." "You were the best mother he could have had," August interrupted vehemently. "Much better than I was as a father." A small, sad smile crossed Sylvia's pale face. "Maybe, but I was. Also selfish. I kept secrets I had no right to keep." She paused, breathing with difficulty before continuing. "That night, when you brought Olivia, I had never seen so much love and despair in someone's eyes. She knew she wasn't going to survive, you know. Doctors always know." August felt his throat tighten. "What do you mean?" "She was a pediatric resident," Sylvia explained. "She was in her first year when she got pregnant. She knew the risks of her condition better than anyone, but she chose to continue with the pregnancy anyway. Because," her voice faltered for a moment, "because she said you deserved to be a father, that you would be a wonderful father." Tears began to stream down August's face. "She said that?" "Those were her last words to me," Sylvia confirmed. "She made me promise that I would take care of the baby if something happened. I didn't know that you too would leave him." The silence that followed was heavy with decades of secrets and regrets. "When I found out who you were," Sylvia continued, "through the hospital records, I was terrified. I had fallen in love with that baby in the first instant. I couldn't bear the idea of losing him. So, when you didn't show up to claim him, it was as if the universe had answered my prayers." "You gave him everything I couldn't," August said, softly. "A stable life, unconditional love, education. But I couldn't give him his origins," she interrupted. "I couldn't explain why he always felt different, why he had that insatiable curiosity for numbers and buildings, just like the biological father he never knew." At that moment, they were interrupted by a commotion at the door. Theo was standing there, carrying a folder of documents, his face a mask of contained emotions. "How long have you been standing there?" Sylvia asked, reaching out to him. "Long enough," he replied, approaching to hold his mother's hand. He looked at August, then back at Sylvia. "Why are you talking about this now? We need to focus on your recovery, not on the past." "Because the past is important, son," Sylvia said firmly, squeezing his hand. "Because you need to understand that having two fathers doesn't mean having to choose between them. And because if something happens to me..." "No, Theo," cut her off sharply. "Don't talk like that. You're going to do the treatment and you're going to be okay." "Theo," she insisted gently, "we need to be realistic. The tumor..." "No!" He let go of her hand, standing up agitated. I've already lost one mother. I'm not going to lose you too. The words hit everyone like a shock. It was the first time Theo had mentioned Olivia as his mother. It was Sophia who broke the tense moment, entering hastily into the room. Sorry to interrupt, but the transfer team has arrived. We need to start preparations now. The next hours were a whirlwind of activity. Doctors and nurses entered and left the room, checking equipment and vital signs. Theo alternated between signing documents and holding Sylvia's hand, as if he feared she might disappear if he let go. August stayed in the corner of the room, watching everything with a lump in his throat. At one point, he noticed Theo staring at the locket he always wore around his neck, the same one he had left with the baby 18 years ago. "She chose you," he said softly, approaching his son. "Olivia. Among all the people she could have loved, she chose you to be the father of her child. And now I understand why." Theo looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You never gave up," August explained. "Even when everything seemed lost, even when Ricardo tried to destroy everything you built, you kept fighting. For your company and for your mother. You're much stronger than I ever was." A moment of silent understanding passed between father and son. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. "Dr. Rivers," one of the doctors called. "It's time. We need to move. Your mother to the ambulance." As the team prepared Sylvia for transport, Theo turned to August. Would you like to come with us? To Germany?" The question caught August completely off guard. I don't know if—" "Just think about it," Theo interrupted, already moving to follow Sylvia's gurney. Maybe it's time to stop running. All of us." August stood in the empty hospital room, Theo's words echoing in his mind. Sophia placed a hand on his shoulder. "He's right, you know," she said softly. "Sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply staying." Outside, the ambulance siren began to wail, taking Sylvia on her last chance of survival, and with her, perhaps, the last chance for a broken family to finally reconnect. The flight to Frankfurt departed in the early morning hours. The private medical aircraft, equipped as a small flying ICU, cut through the dark sky while Sylvia slept under light sedation. Theo was sitting next to her, holding her hand, while the medical team constantly monitored her vital signs. August occupied a seat further away, still feeling out of place in that environment. The decision to accompany them had been made at the last minute, after a conversation with Sophia at the airport. "I can't go," she had said, handing him a small bag with basic clothes she had bought in a hurry. "But you need to, for them and for yourself." Now, watching Theo care for Sylvia with such dedication, August wondered how he could have abandoned his son that night so many years ago. The pain of losing Olivia had been devastating, yes, but running away had been the choice of a coward. "Want some coffee?" Theo's voice pulled him from his thoughts. The young man was standing beside him, offering a disposable cup. "Thank you," August accepted, surprised by the gesture. Theo sat down in the seat next to him, his eyes fixed on his sleeping mother. "You know what's strangest? During all these years, I always imagined what it would be like to meet my biological father. I created 1,000 different scenarios in my head. And none of them involved a janitor, I imagine," August commented with a sad smile. Actually, Theo hesitated, toying with his own coffee cup. "Some did. In the worst moments, I imagined you could be anyone, a beggar, a prisoner, someone who had abandoned me because he simply didn't care." The words hit August like knives. "Theo, Let me finish," the young man asked softly. "What I never imagined was that you would be someone who gave up, not because you didn't care, but because you cared too much. Someone who lost everything and didn't know how to handle it." A reflective silence settled between them. broken only by the soft sound of the medical equipment. "How did you find out?" August asked finally. "That I was adopted, I mean." Theo took a sip of coffee before answering. "My mother was always honest about it. As long as I can remember, she told me stories about the brave nurse who chose me as her son, about how love doesn't need blood ties to be true." "She is an extraordinary woman," August commented, looking at Sylvia. "Yes, she is," Theo agreed. "You know what she always said when I asked about my biological parents? That wherever they were, they must have had very strong reasons to do what they did, that one day I would understand. And do you understand now?" "I'm starting to understand," Theo replied honestly, "but it still hurts. There are still so many questions." At that moment, one of the doctors approached them. "Dr. Rivers, we need to check some of your mother's parameters and also discuss the initial treatment protocol." As Theo walked away with the doctor, August closed his eyes, letting the memories flow. He remembered the first time he saw Olivia in a coffee shop near the hospital where she was doing her residency. She had spilled coffee on his construction spreadsheets, and amidst apologies and paper napkins, something special had been born. "What are you thinking about?" Theo's voice brought him back to the present. "About your mother," he replied honestly. "Olivia, about how she loved life, even knowing the risks of pregnancy." "Tell me about her," Theo asked, sitting down again. "Please." And so, as the plane crossed the Atlantic, August began to share memories he had kept for so long. He spoke about Olivia's smile, about her passion for pediatric medicine, about how excited she got with every little kick during pregnancy. "She had this habit," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "of singing to you every night. She said she wanted you to be born knowing her voice." Theo discreetly wiped away a tear. "What songs did she sing?" "Watercolor by Toquinho was her favorite. She said she wanted you to grow up with the same imagination and creativity as the music." A soft sob caught their attention. Sylvia was awake, watching them with teary eyes. "Mom!" Theo rushed to her side. "How are you feeling?" "Better now," she replied in a weak voice, but with a smile on her lips. "Listening to you two finally talking." August approached the bed hesitantly. "Sorry, we didn't mean to wake you." "Don't be sorry," Sylvia said. "It was time for these stories to be told." The head physician of the team approached, checking the monitors. "We're starting our descent to Frankfurt. We need everyone to return to their seats and fasten their seatbelts." As they settled in for landing, Theo held Sylvia's hand tightly. "Everything's going to be all right, Mom. You'll see." "I know, son," she replied softly. "Because now you have not just one, but 3 people watching over you from heaven. Olivia, me, and your father." "Don't talk like that," Theo protested. "You're going to be okay." Sylvia smiled, that serene smile that only mothers can give. "I always wanted you to know your origins, you know? Not to replace the love we have, but to complete it. So you understand that it's possible to have more than one type of love in your life." The plane began its smooth descent towards Frankfurt Airport. Outside, the sun began to rise, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. It was a new day, in more than one sense. "Dr. Rivers," called the doctor. "As soon as we land, a team from the clinic will be waiting to make the immediate transfer. Dr. Weber, a specialist in the treatment, wants to start the procedures as soon as possible." Theo nodded, his face a mask of determination. "How long?" "Until we know if the treatment is working. The first indications should appear in about a week," she replied. "But it's important to keep expectations realistic," Sylvia completed softly. "Always realistic, aren't we, son?" August watched the interaction between mother and son, feeling simultaneously admiration and a pang of envy for the deep bond they shared. It was the kind of relationship he could have had with Theo if he hadn't run away that night. The plane touched the ground smoothly, marking the beginning of a new phase in everyone's life. As the medical team prepared Sylvia for the transfer, August realized that, for the first time in 18 years, he wasn't running away. He was running towards something, or rather, towards someone. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to rebuild what had been broken. The clinic in Frankfurt was a modern complex of glass and steel surrounded by meticulously manicured gardens. While the medical team led Sylvia to the intensive care unit, Theo and August were directed to a private waiting room where Dr. Weber awaited them. The German doctor was a tall, thin man with grey hair and piercing eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses. He spoke Portuguese with a strong accent, the result of years of working with Brazilian patients. "Mrs. Rivers' case is complex," he explained, spreading exams on the table. "The tumor is in a delicate location, and its accelerated growth in recent days is concerning. We need to act quickly." Theo leaned over the images as if he could understand. "The complex patterns of the MRIs. What are the chances?" Dr. Weber hesitated for a moment. "With conventional treatment, practically none. But our experimental protocol has shown promising results in similar cases. We have a response rate of about 40%. 40%, Theo repeated, his voice a whisper. "Out of every 10 people, 4 survive," August completed softly. "And your mother is going to be one of them." The doctor watched them with interest. "You are Theo's biological father," August replied, surprising himself with the naturalness with which the words came out. Dr. Weber nodded, without showing surprise. In his profession, complicated family stories were more the rule than the exception. "The treatment will begin today," he continued. "It will be intensive, focused radiation therapy combined with a cocktail of experimental drugs. The first few days will be the most difficult." "Can I stay with her?" Theo asked. "For short periods, yes, but we need to keep the environment as controlled as possible. Her immunity will be very low." As they discussed the details of the treatment, a nurse entered the room. "Dr. Weber, the patient is asking for both of you." They found Sylvia already installed in a spacious and bright room, surrounded by state-of-the-art equipment. Despite her pallor and obvious fatigue, she smiled as she saw them. "So," she said, her voice weak but determined, "when do we start fighting?" Theo approached the bed, holding her hand. "The treatment starts today, Mom." Dr. Weber said. "No," she interrupted gently. "I don't want to know technical details now. I want to know if you two are going to be okay." August felt a pang of guilt. Sylvia, even in her state, was still more concerned about her son than herself. Her eyes turned to August, who remained near the door. "Come here," she called. He approached hesitantly, stopping on the other side of the bed. "Both of you," she continued, "need to promise me something. No matter what happens to me." "Don't talk like that," Theo protested. "Let me finish," she insisted. "No matter what happens, you need to promise that you will try. Try to get to know each other. Try to understand each other. Try to be a family. In your own way." Silent tears streamed down Theo's face. August felt his own vision blurring. "Because you know what I've discovered after all these years?" Sylvia continued, her voice getting weaker. "That love is not a limited resource. We don't need to choose who to love. We can just love more." At that moment, a nurse entered the room. "I'm sorry, but we need to start preparations for the first cycle of treatment." "Just one more minute?" Sylvia asked. She looked deeply into Theo's eyes. "Son, get that bag there, please." Theo brought the small bag that Sylvia had insisted on bringing with her. From it, she took out an aged envelope. "I thought it was time for you to have this," she said, handing the envelope to Theo. "These are Olivia's last letters. She wrote them in the hospital, in the last weeks of her pregnancy, when she already knew that there were serious complications. August felt his heart stop. Letters. One for each of you, Sylvia confirmed. She made me promise that I would only deliver them when I thought the time was right. I think that time is now. The nurse cleared her throat discreetly. Mrs. Rivers. I know, Sylvia smiled weakly. Treatment time. You two go read those letters, and remember the promise. Theo leaned down to kiss his mother's forehead, his tears wetting her face. I love you, Mom. I love you too, my son, more than you can imagine. As they were led out of the room, August turned one last time. Sylvia watched him with a look that said more than words could express. Take care of him, she whispered. Always, August promised. In the hallway, Theo held the envelope as if it was something precious and explosive at the same time. I don't know if I can read this now. We don't have to read it now, August replied softly. We can wait until... No, Theo interrupted him. My mother, Sylvia, is right. It's time to face all of this. But would you read it with me? The question, so simple and so profound, took August by surprise. It was the first direct request that Theo had made of him, the first time he had shown he wanted his presence, not just tolerated it. Of course, he replied, his voice hoarse with emotion. If you want. They found a small internal garden of the clinic, a peaceful space with wooden benches and a gentle fountain. The morning sun filtered through the glass ceiling, creating delicate patterns on the floor. Theo opened the envelope carefully, revealing 2 letters. One had his name written on the front, the other August's name. The handwriting was delicate, feminine, the last message from a woman who knew she was saying goodbye. Together, Theo asked, his voice just a whisper. August nodded, unable to speak, and there, in a garden in Frankfurt, father and son began to read Olivia's last words, words that she had kept for 18 years, waiting for the right moment to finally be heard. The letter addressed to Theo trembled in the young businessman's hands as he began to read in a low voice. My son, dear, if you are reading this letter, it means that I was unable to be present in your life as I so dreamed. It also means that Sylvia, the extraordinary nurse I met in these last days, fulfilled her promise to take care of you and deliver these words at the right time. I'm writing from the hospital, listening to your heart beating strongly on the monitor beside me. It's a sound that brings me so much joy and so much sadness at the same time. Joy, because every beat tells me that you are strong, that you are fighting to live. Sadness, because I know, as a doctor and as a mother, that I will not be here to see you grow up. I want you to know that this was my choice. When I discovered the complications of the pregnancy, many advised me to terminate it. They said it was too risky, that I should think of myself. But how could I? You were already part of me, already loved, already dreamed of. Your father, August, stood by me in every decision. He also chose you, you know. From the first moment, without hesitation, his love for you was as great as mine, and I know that if something went wrong after my departure, it was only because the pain can sometimes be too strong to bear alone. Theo stopped reading for a moment, wiping away the tears that were starting to fall. Beside him, August remained silent, his own letter still closed in his trembling hands. Continue, he asked softly. Please. Theo took a deep breath and returned to the letter. I don't know how old you are now reading these words. I don't know what kind of man you have become, what dreams you pursue, what battles you face. But I know deep down in my heart that you are special. You were desired, you were fought for, you were loved from the first instant. Maybe you're angry at me for choosing this path. Maybe you wonder why I risked everything for a pregnancy that doctors said was impossible. The answer is simple, because some things are worth any sacrifice. You are worth any sacrifice. I ask you not to hold a grudge against your father. August is a good man with a huge heart, but also human, subject to frailties and fears. If he wasn't present in your life as he should have been, it wasn't for lack of love, it was for too much of it. Sometimes love can paralyze us, make us make decisions that we regret later. And if Sylvia was the one who raised you, thank her every day. In the few days I spent with her here in the hospital, I could see her strength, her determination, her infinite capacity to love. If she chose you, it was because she saw the same thing I saw, a miracle, a second chance, a light in the midst of darkness. Theo stopped again, his hands trembling so much that he could barely hold the paper. August gently took the letter and continued reading, "My son, my little warrior, I want you to know that wherever I am proud of you. Proud not only of what you have conquered or achieved, but of the simple fact of existing, of fighting, of moving forward. I carry you, not only in my womb, but in every beat of my heart, in every breath, in every dream, that I still have time to dream. And if there is one thing I have learned on this journey, it is that true love knows no limits, neither of time, nor of space, nor even of life and death. Allow yourself to be loved, my son. By Sylvia, who chose to be your mother. By August, who needs to learn to be your father. By all who cross your path and see in you the light that I see. And most importantly, allow yourself to love. Because in the end, that's what we are, beings made of love, built of hope, woven with the golden threads of the dreams that our parents dreamed for us. With all my love, forever, Mom, Olivia." The silence that followed was heavy with emotion. Theo's face was covered in tears, his shoulders trembling with contained sobs. August, still holding Olivia's letter, felt as if his heart were being torn from his chest. "Your turn," Theo said finally, indicating the letter still closed in his father's hands. August looked at the envelope, as if it could burn his fingers. With infinite care, he opened it and began to read. "My love, if you are reading this, it means that the worst has happened. It means that I was unable to see our son grow up, unable to grow old by your side, unable to fulfill all the dreams we built together. But it also means that you are alive, that our son is alive, and that, my love, is the greatest gift I could receive. August, you were the most incredible man I have ever known. Not for your successes in business, not for your charm or intelligence, but for your infinite capacity to love. You loved me when I was broken. You supported me when everyone said I was crazy to carry this pregnancy forward. You dreamed with me when I no longer had the strength to dream alone. That's why I know this. Loss will be devastating for you. I know you will want to give up. You will want to run away. You will want to close yourself off from the world. And that's exactly why I'm writing this letter. Don't give up, my love. Don't give up on our son. Don't give up on our dreams. Don't give up on yourself. The pain will pass. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not in many years, but it will pass. And when it passes, I want you to be there for our son. I want you to tell him about us, about our love, about how he was desired and planned and loved from the first moment. If you are reading this now, probably a lot of time has passed. Maybe you have made mistakes. Maybe you have gotten lost along the way. But it's never too late to start over. It's never too late to love. It's never too late to be the father I know you can be. Forgive yourself, August, as I forgive you, as our son will forgive you, because in the end, we are all just humans trying to do the best we can with the cards that life deals us. I will always love you in every sunrise, in every drop of rain, in every smile of our son. Forever yours, Olivia." When August finished reading, he was sobbing openly, decades of pain and guilt finally finding release. Beside him, Theo was also crying, but there was something different about his crying. It was no longer just sadness, but also relief, understanding, forgiveness. "She knew," Theo whispered. She knew everything that was going to happen. "She was always the strongest of us," August replied, his voice choked. "The wisest." At that moment, something changed between father and son. Olivia's words, kept for so long, had built a bridge over the abyss of 18 years that separated them. It wasn't a complete forgiveness. It wasn't an instant happy ending, but it was a beginning. The fountain continued its gentle melody in the clinic garden, while the sun, now high in the sky, cast different shadows through the glass ceiling. Somewhere in the hospital, Sylvia fought her own battle, while 2 generations of men began, finally, to heal their wounds. The days at the German clinic turned into an intense routine of waiting and hope. Sylvia faced the experimental treatment with surprising strength, even in the most difficult moments. Theo divided his time between his mother's room and long video calls to manage his company from afar, often falling asleep in the uncomfortable hospital chair. August found his own rhythm in that strange environment. During the mornings, when Sylvia was more willing, he stayed discreetly nearby, helping with small tasks, adjusting pillows, fetching water, reading books in a low voice when she asked. In the afternoons, when fatigue overwhelmed her, he dedicated himself to taking care of Theo, ensuring that his son ate and rested, even if briefly. It was during one of those afternoons that Sophia called with news from Chicago. Ricardo asked. "To see you again," she reported, her voice conveying concern even through the distance. "The doctors say he's not doing well. The psychiatric treatment." "I don't want to know," August interrupted her gently. "That part of our history is closed." There was a moment of silence on the line before Sophia continued. "There's one more thing. I found something in the old construction company files, something you need to see." "What is it?" "A bank account," she hesitated, "in Olivia's name. It seems she had been saving money secretly, preparing for whatever might happen." August felt his heart clench. How much? With the accumulated interest all these years, enough to cover a good part of Sylvia's treatment. The irony of the situation did not escape August. Even after so much time, Olivia still found ways to take care of them. "Use the money," he decided. "But don't tell Theo yet. I don't want him to think I'm trying to buy his forgiveness." "August," Sophia sighed, "are you ever going to stop punishing yourself?" The question went unanswered when Theo appeared in the hallway, his face tense. "I need to talk to you," he said, without preamble. "It's about the treatment." August said goodbye quickly to Sophia and followed his son to the internal garden that had become their refuge in recent weeks. The place was different now. Someone had added more plants, and the fountain seemed to sing a softer melody. "The doctors just updated me," Theo began, sitting heavily on one of the benches. "The tumor, it's not responding as we hoped." The world seemed to slow down around them. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means we need to try something more aggressive." Theo ran his hands over his face, clearly exhausted. "A new experimental protocol, but the chances are lower," August completed softly. 20%, Theo confirmed, his voice breaking, "and the side effects will be much worse." "Does she know yet?" "Not yet. The doctors thought it best to inform me first, so that I could. The words were lost in a contained sob. Without thinking, August moved to sit beside his son, putting an arm around his shoulders. To his surprise, Theo didn't pull away. On the contrary, he seemed to collapse against him, as if finally allowing himself to be just a scared son, not the successful businessman that the world knew. "I can't lose her," he murmured against his father's shoulder. "I can't." "Hey," August squeezed him gently. "Your mother is the strongest person I have ever known. If anyone can beat this, it's her. But what if she can't? What if? Then we'll be here," August promised. "Together." Theo pulled away slightly, wiping his eyes. Why are you doing this? After all these years, after everything that's happened? Because it's what fathers do, August replied simply. Even the ones who took too long to learn how to be. A moment of silent understanding passed between them, interrupted by the arrival of a nurse. Dr. Rivers, your mother is asking for you, and... She hesitated, looking at August. For you too, sir. They found Sylvia sitting in bed, looking even smaller and more fragile than before. But her eyes, those eyes that had seen so much love and so much pain, shone with a fierce determination. I already know about the new treatment, she said as soon as they entered. The walls here are thin, you know. Theo rushed to her side. Mom, we don't have to decide now. We can think, research other options. No, she interrupted him gently. There are no other options, and that's okay. How can everything be okay? Theo protested, his voice breaking again. Because I'm not fighting just for myself anymore, she smiled, holding his hand. I'm fighting for you, for us, for this family that is finally healing. Her eyes met August's. Come here, she called. When he approached, she took his hand too, joining it with Theo's. You too, she began, her voice weak but determined, are more alike than you imagine. You have the same heart, the same ability to love deeply, the same fear of losing that love. And now, more than ever, you need each other. Mom, Theo tried to interrupt, but she continued, I'm going to do this treatment. I'm going to fight with everything I have. But I need to know that no matter what happens, you will continue this healing process that you have started, that you will allow Olivia's love through those letters to continue guiding you back to each other. The emotion in the room was palpable. Through the window, the afternoon sun painted golden shadows on the white walls, while three people, united by love and pain, faced the unknown together. I promise, August said softly. I promise too, Theo echoed. Sylvia smiled, satisfied. Great! Now can someone help me up? If I'm going to start a new treatment, I want to do it standing up, looking life in the eyes. And so, supported by father and son, Sylvia stood up to face her next battle. On the horizon, dark clouds were approaching, bringing the promise of a storm, but also the certainty that after the rain, the sun always shines again. The new treatment was brutal. Sylvia spent hours hooked up to machines that pumped experimental drugs into her weakened body, while intense sessions of radiation therapy left her exhausted and nauseous. Her hair, already thin, began to fall out completely, and her face lost what color it still retained. Even so, she didn't lose her smile. Even in the worst moments, when the pain seemed unbearable, she found the strength to encourage Theo, who visibly suffered from seeing her in that state. One particularly difficult morning after a night of high fever, Sylvia called August close to her bed, while Theo had left for an urgent video conference. I need you to promise me something, she said, her voice just a whisper. Anything, August replied, holding her frail hand. If I don't make it, if this treatment doesn't work. She hesitated, gathering strength. Promise that you won't let him close off again, that you won't allow the pain to turn him into the man he fears becoming. August felt his heart clench. What do you mean? Theo, she explained, is so afraid of being like you were, of getting lost in the pain, of running away when things get difficult. He pushes himself so hard to be strong, to never show weakness. He's not like me, August interrupted gently. He's much stronger. No, Sylvia smiled weakly. He's exactly like you. He has the same passionate heart, the same ability to love deeply, and the same paralyzing fear of losing that love. At that moment, Sophia called August on his cell phone. He answered on speakerphone, allowing Sylvia to participate in the conversation as well. The money from Olivia's account, Sophia began without preamble, is now available. And there's more. I found documents showing that she had taken out a substantial life insurance policy which was never claimed. Sylvia widened her eyes. Olivia, she planned everything. Yes, Sophia confirmed. It was as if she knew that one day you would need this help. The total amount, with the accumulated interest, is enough to cover the entire treatment and still have a considerable amount left. Over. Silent tears ran down Sylvia's face. Even after so much time, she's still taking care of her son. Of all of us, August corrected gently. After they hung up, Sylvia was silent for a long moment, her eyes lost in the landscape beyond the hospital window. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with emotion. You know what impresses me most in all of this? How love finds its ways, even through time, even through pain. Olivia loved you both so much that she managed to overcome even the barrier of death to continue protecting her family. Like you did, August commented, protecting and loving Theo all these years. Sylvia smiled, but her smile soon turned into an expression of pain. Her body began to tremble, and the monitors beside the bed triggered alarms. Call Theo, she managed to say before losing consciousness. The following hours were a blur of frenetic activity. Doctors and nurses ran from one side to the other, while Theo, who had returned in a hurry, watched everything with a mute terror in his eyes. It's a reaction to the treatment, Dr. Weber explained after they managed to stabilize her. Her body is fighting against the drugs. We need to interrupt the protocol for a few days, let her regain her strength. And then? Theo asked, his voice trembling. Then, we will have to make a difficult decision. Continue with this protocol, knowing the risks, or give up. Theo completed, bitter, or seek quality of life in the time that remains, the doctor corrected gently. That night, Theo didn't leave his mother's side. August brought coffee and food, but his son barely touched anything. He just sat there, holding Sylvia's hand, as if he could keep her anchored to life through that contact. Around midnight, Sylvia woke up briefly. Her eyes, although tired, were surprisingly lucid. "My son," she called softly. Theo leaned immediately over her. "I'm here, Mom. I'm here. I need you to listen to me," she said, each word a visible effort. "About the treatment." "No, Mom, we're not going to talk about that now. You need to rest." "Theo," her voice gained a tone of authority that admitted no arguments. "Listen to your mother." He fell silent, silent tears running down his face. If the time comes to choose," she continued, "between a few more weeks of treatment or a few months of real life, I want the months. Mom, please. I want to be able to sit in the garden," she continued. "I want to be able to talk to you without being doped up on medication. I want to see you and your father building this relationship that took so long to start." August, who was watching the scene from the door, felt his heart break at seeing the suffering on his son's face. "I can't," Theo sobbed. "I can't just accept." "I'm not asking you to accept," Sylvia interrupted him gently. "I'm asking you to understand. There are different ways to fight, my love. Sometimes fighting means knowing when to stop." She extended her free hand to August, calling him closer. When he approached, she took his hand and joined it with Theo's, as she had done days before. "You are my victory," she declared, her voice weak but full of conviction. "Seeing you two here, together, taking care of each other, is everything I've ever wanted." The heart monitor marked Sylvia's beats, a constant reminder of how fragile and precious life could be at the same time. "And Olivia," she continued, a small smile on her pale lips, "she would be so proud of both of you." At that moment, father and son realized that they were facing yet another crossroads. It wasn't just about Sylvia's treatment. It was about how they would face together whatever fate had in store for them. "What do you want to do?" Theo asked finally, his voice broken. Sylvia's eyes shone with contained tears. "I want to live, son. For as long as I have left, I want to really live." Spring arrived in Frankfurt, bringing an explosion of color to the clinic gardens. 3 months had passed since Sylvia's decision to discontinue the experimental treatment, and each day was lived as a precious gift. The medical team had managed to balance palliative medications that kept the pain under control without leaving her completely sedated. This allowed Sylvia to spend long periods awake, actively participating in the life that was happening around her. Her room had transformed. The once white and sterile walls were now decorated with photos and drawings. A comfortable armchair replaced the old plastic chair, and there were always fresh flowers on the small table beside the bed, a special touch that August made a point of maintaining. That particular morning, Sylvia was sitting in her wheelchair in the internal garden, watching Theo and August chat as they walked among the flower beds. It was a scene that still moved her, seeing father and son slowly rebuilding their relationship, healing old wounds with patience and understanding. "They are so alike," she commented to Sophia, who had arrived from Chicago the week before for a visit. "They really are," Sophia agreed, adjusting the shawl on Sylvia's shoulders, "even in their flaws." "Especially in their flaws," Sylvia laughed softly. "Both are too stubborn to admit when they are wrong, too proud to ask for help when they need it. And love too deeply to know how to deal with the possibility of loss," Sophia completed gently. Sylvia nodded, her eyes following the two men who were now approaching. Theo seemed lighter in recent days, as if he had finally allowed part of the weight he carried to be shared with his father. August, in turn, had regained something of his former posture, not the arrogance of the successful businessman, but the dignity of a man who had finally found his place in the world. "We decided something," Theo announced, kneeling beside his mother's chair. "We're going home." "Home?" Sylvia asked, surprised. "Back to Chicago," August explained. "Dr. Weber said you're stable enough to travel, and we've arranged everything to continue your palliative treatment." "And there?" "But your company, Theo." "The company can wait," he replied firmly. "Or rather, it can be managed from anywhere. The important thing is that we're together, at home. And there's more," Sophia added with a smile. "Remember that old house in Lincoln Park, the one that was in Olivia's name?" Sylvia nodded. "Well, instead of selling it, Theo and August decided to renovate it. It's going to be our new home, all of us." "All of us?" Sylvia asked, her eyes filling with tears. "All of us," August confirmed. "You, Theo, me, even Sophia if she wants. A real family finally." At that moment, something extraordinary happened. Sylvia began to laugh, a genuine, crystal-clear laugh that echoed through the garden like music. "What is it?" Theo asked, smiling too. "I was just thinking," she replied, wiping away tears of laughter, "about how life comes full circle. How 3 broken people found each other and somehow became whole again." 4 people, Sophia corrected gently. "Olivia is also part of this story." "Yes," Sylvia agreed, touching the locket that Theo now rarely took off his neck. "She always has been." The following days were filled with preparations. The medical transfer was organized, an air ambulance was hired, and little by little, the hospital room that had been their home for the past months was being emptied. On the night before their departure, while Theo finalized the last details, with the medical team, Sylvia asked to be alone with August for a few minutes. "You know what scared me the most?" she asked, her voice soft in the dimness of the room. "It wasn't death, it was leaving Theo alone." "He'll never be alone," August promised. "I know, now I know," she smiled. "You've finally become the father that Olivia always knew you could be." August felt tears burning his eyes. "Thanks to you, for doing what I wasn't able to do, for loving and raising my son when I failed him." "No," Sylvia corrected him gently. "It wasn't just that. It was for saving space in his heart for you, even when it would have been easier to let him hate you." The next morning, when the ambulance arrived to take them to the airport, the sun was rising over Frankfurt, painting the sky pink and gold. The German medical team said goodbye with emotional hugs, and Dr. Weber made a point of accompanying them to the plane. "Remember," he said to Sylvia, "every day is a victory. Every moment is precious." "I know," she replied, smiling. "I always have." The trip back to Chicago was uneventful. Sylvia slept most of the time, comfortably settled in the medical aircraft, while Theo and August talked in low voices about plans for the future. When they finally arrived at the renovated house in Lincoln Park, a surprise awaited them. Sophia had worked tirelessly to transform the place. The garden was in bloom, the walls freshly painted, and each room had been decorated with photos that told the story of that peculiar family. In the main room, above the fireplace, 3 photographs occupied a prominent place. Olivia pregnant, smiling radiantly at the camera. Sylvia with young Theo in her arms, both laughing at some forgotten joke. And a recent photo of the 4 of them, Sylvia, Theo, August and Sophia, taken in the garden of the clinic in Frankfurt. "It's perfect," Sylvia whispered when they took her to see her new room, which had a large window overlooking the garden. In the months that followed, the house filled with life and love. Sylvia had good and bad days, but each moment was lived fully. Theo managed his company from home, spending every free minute with his mother. August discovered an unexpected talent for gardening, transforming the backyard into a true paradise of colors and aromas. Sophia became a constant presence, taking care of everyone with a dedication that went beyond any professional obligation. It was as if she had finally found the family she had always wanted. On one particularly beautiful afternoon, while everyone was gathered in the garden, Sylvia made a special request. "I want you to plant a tree," she said, "one that grows strong and tall, that provides shade and fruit, that is a place where people can sit and talk and love each other." Theo and August chose a yellow trumpet tree, and together, as father and son, they dug the hole and planted the young sapling. Sophia brought water and Sylvia threw a handful of earth, blessing the moment with her presence. "This tree," she declared, "will be our legacy. A symbol of how love can grow even in the most unlikely places, of how families can be built in many different ways, of how life always finds a way to flourish." And so it was. The tree grew, strong and vigorous, its roots deepening into the rich soil while its branches stretched towards the sky. Like the family that planted it, it found its unique way to thrive. Sylvia lived to see the first flowering of the yellow trumpet tree, its golden flowers filling the garden with light and hope. And when she finally departed, it was in peace, knowing that her greatest wish had been fulfilled. Her family was complete, healed, united by a love that transcends time and even death. Today, whoever passes by the house in Lincoln Park can see a majestic yellow trumpet tree in the garden. Under its shade, you often find a father and a son, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence, sharing each other's presence. And if you look closely, you might feel the presence of 2 extraordinary women, Olivia and Sylvia, who, each in their own way, taught these men the true meaning of unconditional love. Because in the end, that's what we are. Not just flesh and blood, not just successes and failures, but the sum of all the loves that have touched us, of all the people who have chosen to stay by our side, of all the second chances we have had, the courage to seize. And sometimes, like that yellow trumpet tree in the garden, we need to lose all the flowers to discover that our branches are strong enough to bloom again.